I'm Sushma, product owner at Red Hat. Coming from a IT consulting experience into the product industry was a significant shift in my career, especially when it came to understanding the product industry, how things work in this product world, and experiencing the culture at Red Hat. I'll give over to Veronika. Why don't you?
Hi, I'm Veronika. I'm currently working on the changes to the whole Red Hat Enterprise Linux development pipeline, spanning a little bit to CentOS Stream and Fedora. And before that, I was working on kernel CI, and if you went to Mike Hoffman's talk yesterday, he said that kernel developers can get very grumpy if things get broken. I'll extend on that and say they can get very grumpy if you try to change the workflows that are almost as old as you. So I have a lot of experience with how to introduce changes in a way that these kinds of people don't get too unhappy. But Sushma, how did you get to being passionate about changes and navigating these situations?
Yeah, that's a story. It was the year 2006 when I started my career as a support engineer. I'm staring at these green screens, writing the JCL and COBOL programs for mainframe systems. How many have you worked on mainframes? Is there anybody here? Wow, then I'm the only person. I'm going to tell you how it is. So, in hindsight, the workflows were more predictable. The boundaries were clearly defined. Success simply meant following a known path. Changes back then would mean updating a bad job or debugging this mysterious sub-end code somewhere that something has failed. Fast forward today, working as a product owner in an agile environment, collaborating with multiple stakeholders, be it architect, DevOps engineers, business stakeholders, navigating through that continuous delivery, feature flags, and understanding the evolving customer needs. The pace is different, as I can sense it, and then there's ambiguity to it, but only constant is change. I have seen firsthand how change can be disorienting, but with the right structure and confidence, I think it can be transformative. That's my take on it.
Yeah, change in IT is everything. It's a fast-paced industry. Even if you don't work on the current hyped technology, you will be in touch with change, whether it's a change in business requirements or legal requirements or customer requirements. Change is everywhere. It's, ironically enough, the only thing that's not changing across IT and tech in general. I did a talk for beginners in IT, and I told them that if you work in IT, you sign up for being able to deal with the change. But just saying, hey, deal with it, you picked it, that's not really cool. Nobody was born with coping mechanisms or people skills. These are all skills that we can learn. And that's what we are going to talk about. So as you could probably get from the introduction, first Sushma is going to talk about how you can embrace the changes that are being thrown your way. And after that, I'll be talking about things from the other side. How, if you or your team are responsible for introducing change to other people, how you can make their lives easier, how you can make the change more welcome and acceptable.
Thank you, Veronika. Thank you for setting that context. Let me talk through you about the embracing change part. As I earlier mentioned, with structure and confidence, things can be done better. It doesn't have to be that chaotic, right? So I'll share with you a framework that has helped me and my teams. And this framework that I have come to believe in is less about tools, but more about behaviors. I start with this. I call it in short, GRACE framework. The G here stands for guardrails. What does that mean? Understand the system using the things you know, which helps you create the controls and boundaries. In our traditional system, or the legacy system, the controls and constraints were our safety net. They helped us maintain the quality and predictability in the system. We can use something similar to similar guardrails in our current dynamic systems. How do we do that? By building observability into everything. That can help us uncover the unknowns, the unknown unknowns as well, something that we did not start in the first place with that understanding. So documenting those knowns and unknowns and keeping them updated as we learn new information, And then establishing the feedback loops, the communication and the feedback loops is very important to continue learning and update those controls and boundaries as you learn a new information. The R here stands for reframe, altering perceptions. It's easier said than done, right? You have heard about it. So change is hard when it feels like a loss of familiarity, loss of control, or an identity. What if you see the change in a positive way? What if you see it as an opportunity that enables people to see things in a different light? It's a mindset shift, right? So it's not easy. So leaders got to help the teams, and every individual have to make a conscious effort towards this. I can quote you with an example, and we can also further discuss if time permits. So one of the common things that comes across as a roadblock when a change is met with is the legacy systems, something that we have gotten used to, and the business is happy with it, and somehow we are able to continue with that, right? So they're stable enough. Why do we want to change? Reframe. These stable business foundational system would require a careful evolution and possibly a migration. I'll probably give another example as I'm seeing some faces still staring. So burnout, maybe the usual thing that you have heard, right? Reframe. Or let me say burnout, somebody most often can be badged as an honor, but let's reframe that. There might be a problem with the priorities. Let's reevaluate the priorities for sustainability and then self-care. So that's how we need to see. Let's try to see, have that altering perceptions, how we can try and do that mindset shift consciously when we met with changes. The A here stands for adapt. So when we are faced with a lot of unknowns, you need tools to navigate that fog. The safest thing to do here is not to wait, but move small and fast. So you are very well aware probably the iterative approach. I call it the time-boxed experiments, and then building slack into the planning so that you can adapt and adjust to any new information that comes about, and then tailor your process for efficiency. What do I mean by here? I'll spend a minute here, because from my personal experience, when a team is thrown a framework or a method, say Agile Scrum, I have seen situations where the team gets overwhelmed with all the ceremonies, all the formalities that they're, I don't know, it's about how do you guide the team. I think what I mean by tailoring the process is to understand the team dynamics and see what fits better for the team needs. Coming up with a healthy team dynamics is very important to keep moving and adapting to the change, the demands of the change. The last thing, but not the least, but very important, is don't hesitate to press that reverse gear or reset your plans if that's the right thing to do. And you also need to enable your teams to be able to do that. So that's my, these things have helped me a lot, so I hope it helps you as well in terms of adapting to the changes. C here stands for communicating. Are you suffering from more meetings? So I'm one of the person as well. There are lots of meetings, but the clarity doesn't come from having more meetings or even the volume of communication. It comes from the shared understanding, and how do we get there is by communicating the intent and context early and often, and also contextualizing the communication. So instead of saying we delivered so many features in a quarter or so many tasks in a sprint, I would say this is the problem we have solved, and this is the impact on the people who are really impacted by the change. What are we solving for them? So contextualizing the communication is really important. The last element of my framework is empower. Commonly, people react to change with fear, confusion, frustration, or excitement. It's really important to cultivate psychological safety where people can try and fail safely. And empowerment here, what I mean is to enable them to own the outcomes, not just the tasks. What does that do is it fosters the ownership and accountability and enables the team to navigate the change proactively and confidently. With that, I will close this section. And this is another reference for you to take. It's Kubler-Ross change curve. It helps you understand the psychology of people, how they move through this change curve. And I welcome all the leaders to understand this and help your teams to go through this process and get there. So I'll close this section with the statement, I don't think people resist change, they resist uncertainty. With empathy, clarity, and empowerment, we can turn change into growth. Over to you to tell us how to make things easier for people.
Thank you. So Sushma talked about a lot of things that are very critical, and I would put a lot of emphasis mainly on the communication. Clear communication, if you are somebody who introduces changes, is really the way to go to help everybody out. If you are working with engineers, they need to know the details of what this change is entailing. They need to know why the change is being done or introduced. They need to know how it will affect them as developers, how it will affect their workflows. What happens to the team that was working on a similar product and now we are introducing something else? All kinds of questions that you might have. If you are announcing a change, try to prepare an FAQ that you send together with that announcement, and that will really help people understand why the change is being done and how exactly it affects them. Similar to that point, prepare guides for possible migrations of how the workflows translate if it's needed. Introduce some support channels where people can get help for their changes, where they can ask about some corner cases, where if they don't understand what's happening, they can get some more assistance in figuring out how to introduce the changes to their particular teams. If you can, try to introduce the change in a way that doesn't disrupt people's workflow. Is there some common interface in the tooling that you can hijack and hide the change on the background so that while the change is actually happening on the tooling, people won't even notice it in their daily jobs? Or, if you could, you can also try to introduce a benefit with the change. This is really something crucial that I do want to emphasize as well, because why are things changing? Like, do we want to change them just so we have job security or something? Every change should really come with a benefit. Is it a benefit in improved security? Is it a benefit that in the end will improve people's workflow? There will be less work on infrastructure teams? Whatever it is, that there is this kind of benefit, it really needs to be a benefit also in some form to the end user. And now a lot of you might be thinking that these last 2 points are like really nice, but half of the time you can't do that. You can't hide some of the changes. They are going to be disrupting people. And yes, you would be absolutely correct. And this is exactly why there's the emphasis on the communication. Because communication fosters trust. Sushma talked about how people fear the uncertainty that comes with changes. People like their comfort zones. And part of why they like them so much is because they know them well. And if you are changing things, then of course you are pushing people out of their comfort zones, and then they don't feel very happy about things that are happening. And the communication here is really the crucial thing. I can share an example for this. I had to recently introduce a change that would come in people's workflows. In that announcement, I share why the change is happening, how we're introducing it, who's going to be affected, how exactly, how we are trying to meet people in the middle by extending the tooling so that they have the least amount of extra work they have to do. And if you go to the next slide, I have here an anonymized quote from a developer that I got as a response to that. I truly appreciate the communication around this change. It's a great example of how to do changes like this. Thanks. Why I want to share this example is exactly to emphasize that point of the communication. Like, that change was disruptive. There were people that had to do extra work because of that change. And this was the feedback. So if you communicate a lot, if you explain things to people, it really, really helps out. And this applies to changes that you're introducing, even if you are like just a manager or team lead and you are doing changes just to your team. It applies completely similarly to if you are a CEO and affecting the whole organization with whatever you make. People need details. They need to feel certain that what you are introducing is good. It's good for them. They need to understand things. If you just say that, hey, we are going to be migrating to this thing and good luck figuring it out, don't be surprised. People don't trust your assessment if that's all you tell them. They really need to know those details. So if you don't know how to get this kind of information, what you should share, you can always talk to people. Find a representative of the stakeholder group. If you don't know anybody, ask your manager or ask your teammates. Maybe they know somebody. People really enjoy talking about the work they do. They enjoy being looked up to for their expertise. So they usually won't really like send you away if you ask them for help. The worst they can do is to send you to somebody else who might be a better fit to answer your questions, and that's still a win for everybody. So if you don't know how to figure out how to get the information that you need, how to figure out how the workflows are going to be affected for people, talk to them. People are really not that scary to talk to, I promise you that, despite how there's the misconception of that in IT. But if you really don't like to talk to people, Sushma might tell you about how you can leverage the AI thingies.
All right. So thank you so much. Those were all really great tips. I know we're working on a change together. I'd like to take some of these to the team and see how we can improve things. So I'm going to touch upon a little bit about how we can leverage AI to navigate change. So AI is a powerful tool. Everyone is talking about it. It can be a change companion for you. It can help you in these areas that I have listed here. Honestly, I have not tried all these, but I'll tell you what my experience is so far and how I'm using it. But just to explain some of the areas where AI can help you, it can help you discover insights faster. You can provide the data, and you can tell the trend behind it, and it can help you analyze the data. And accelerate the decision making, time to respond. It can help you with that. Automating some of the routine tasks, and customizing or contextualizing the communications, like what I was mentioning earlier. Simulating the outcomes. You can try the what-if scenarios and see what is coming up. So you might find some help there. And then supporting continuous learning by curating some training material or the content to skill up the team. So personally, at my work, I use AI for analyzing the data that can verify the priorities that I'm creating and the roadmaps. Besides that, I use it for contextualizing the communication, try and personalize the communication to the people I'm talking to and explain them why that is important for them to know and what is the impact of the change that we are delivering or the problem we are trying to solve. Besides that, generally, it creates some space for me to think better and broadly. I think that's a few things that I wanted to share with you from the how we can leverage AI perspective.
Yeah, I'll just go back just a little bit for the AI. Like, be very careful what you're sharing with AI. Don't put there anything confidential unless it was approved by your organization, and be aware that it's not all powerful. It doesn't know the context of all the use cases that people have, all the different core cases and workflows. It doesn't have that context that a person who's actually working in those teams that are going to be affected has. So just if you are looking for these kinds of information, I'm sorry, you're still gonna talk to people.
You're spot on with that. I think you need to work on your prompts, what you're requesting for, and also be critical about the results you're getting. So yeah, thank you. That brings us to the end of the session, and we are open for discussion. Yes. Yeah, you can.
Great presentation. But I do have a question. For example, when there is a change that's coming from leadership, and the change is there's a tight deadline to implement the change, right? to the team does when the deadlines are tight around that change?
Yeah. So my friend here is asking, we talked about restarting, resetting the plans, but there is a pressure from the top to deliver things on a tight deadline. How do we manage this? My take on this, some thoughts from, it's very common, right? I'm not being here, I'm not saying that I'm not in this la-la land where things are really going fine. But yeah, when such thing happens, I think my first take, or how I deal with it is, I still want to focus on the quality that we are delivering. And yes, we have a deadline, but I would look for the value that we can meet by that deadline to show something like that is working for customers. And then say, if you need it a little bit further, then let's talk about the new deadline or the timelines that make sense for you. I know it's a very tricky discussion, but I don't want to cut through these, it changes already, it brings us so many uncertain things, unknown things. So we are not able to state exactly this is where things would start and this is where it would end. But I can project or put a goal in mind, or vision in mind, and say, given this timeline, and this is the value I can probably look for, and further, my vision is so and so, and that would need time. Which one would you love, right? So this is how I always approach it. I know there is always a debate about it, but what is your take? You have any?
I would say that you still need to have a conversation, even with like representatives of that leadership, figure out what exactly is the ask. It's sometimes not clear from the original question. You need to know exactly what you need to do, and then in that discussion you actually might figure out that the change isn't too bad. Or maybe you find out that something that wasn't communicated clearly actually needs to get done, and if you didn't have this discussion, you would never figure that out. So I would still, unfortunately, put it back to talk to each other, talk within your team on what actually is needed, what are the questions that aren't answered by that original ask, and bring that back to that leadership to get the answers for that. And if you, yes, you are on a tight line, but if you miss this step, then you might totally mess up on the delivery because it's not going to be clear what needs to happen. So it would bring even worse stuff.
Yes?
Do you have any examples of where you found that using AI chatbot helped you?
Mm-hmm.
Like how it helped you?
Okay, the question is an example about how AI chatbot helped me in my work. So like I was saying, for prioritizing, we collect some data. So I ran my own investigations or analysis around it and prepared a summary that I would need. And then I gave a prompt to AI to see what does that bring to me. And that's the way I was verifying the direction, like the priorities. Am I getting this right, or is there some other viewpoint that the AI is bringing up? It was not, for me, the way it curated the information was fancy. And it was something that I could put and present it. But I had to make my own tweaks because I had the other factors in mind that I could not, could not be interpreted by the AI. So it wasn't like all set and you go from here, but it was still something that needs to be done. That's what I mentioned as be critical about the results that you're getting. Any other questions? Yes, Dawn. Okay, the question is how much the work choice matters when you try to communicate a change. Can you explain me on the work choice?
Like how you say things in that announcement email, like whether...
Okay, I think that connects to the contextualizing communication. So yeah, sending a broader email, which is really a common thread to everybody, you cannot contextualize it. Then you'll have to split and say for each people who are impacted by the change, curate a communication just specifically for them and say how it's going to be impacted for them. It takes time, but I think if we reduce those communication about the status, like we delivered so many features, but instead focus on this and have a strategy around it, who is going to do this communication, I think it is possible we can do the work choice basis, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with targeting the communication to different groups, but even if it's just like a basic high-level generic email, the word choice there matters if you want to foster the trust. Like I talked about how the communication and open communication mainly can foster trust even with disruptive changes, and the communication style there really matters if you are interested in keeping that trust, because trust is really hard to gain and very easy to lose. So if you are a leader who just like, as I mentioned in my example, this is where we're going and figure it out, that communication style compared to this is where we're heading, this is how we're approaching it, this is why the change is something we want to do, and this is what we expect from you, that already is a large difference, and it also shows people you're communicating with that you actually made some sort of research, that you actually care about them as your team or your employees or whoever, that how these changes are affecting them and what you are expecting from them, rather than, yeah, figure it out, have fun. So that also matters a lot.
Any other questions? Yes. Okay, the question is, have you ever made any decision that ended up badly? Trying to think about it. Yeah, and how long it took you to realize that? It's a heavy topic.
I don't know if we can figure something out on the spot, but like usually if you introduce a change, you get that like grumpy kernel developer or whoever else that gets broken, or their workflows gets broken, or something gets completely broken, and they will complain. So you will realize really quickly that you messed up.
Standing as a product owner, I don't have a good example for you, but I can tell you right now, like when we are dealing with this change that is really critical, very uncertain, comes with this lot of unknowns kind of thing, there is a constant debate about the plans that we had earlier, past that earlier, and coming back to revisit that vision, and again revisit the plans, and it's still not soaking in even after we repeat it so often about the why we are doing this, and this is our vision. But there's still a lot of questions around it. It's not settling in. I'm in that phase now to rethink about it. I'm trying to see from the perspective of the person who is asking me what makes more sense. What is that they're looking for in that, instead of projecting my understanding about it. So yeah, it's going back to what Veronika said earlier, the conversations. So yeah, I think that's having those critical conversations and staying in touch with them. I think that really makes sense.
Also, I will add to that, like, don't let your ego stand in the way of the improvement. Like, 100%. If you made a decision that's wrong, just say, okay, we didn't see these sorts of use cases, sorry, let's figure out how we can improve this and fix this. Don't double down. If you want to be, like, this is going more into, like, leadership one-on-one, but, like, don't let your ego be the thing that you are trying to, like, make larger. It's really contradictory to what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, the focus is not on you, the process. So it's always, it should be that's the mindset. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have any general thoughts on who should do the change communication? Should it come from the line manager, or should it be some alliance meeting or mail list announcement? Probably it depends on the change, maybe of some ideas.
To repeat the question, who should communicate? If it should be the line manager, or the all hands meetings, or the different forums we should be using? I would cast a wide net and take the help of all these forums that are available to talk about the change. That's how I see it, and that's how we are trying to do most of the time, because the audience there are different, and they all are influencers for our change, if it is impacting all of these different people. So yes, study what the impact of the change is, who is it impacting, and choose these forums where you can talk to them face to face, and also the offline communication, the mailing list where it should go. So, and who should communicate? I think we should, in our case, we have a program manager, right? And also the line managers we also have the feature teams. So if the feature team managers can be leveraged if it's too technical about the feature area that we're going to talk about. But the program manager I see as a person who communicates these to the broader audience. But we also have, for example, development, our lead engineer, who can talk to the developers in the context that they wish to listen to. So it depends. I think that's the strategy. There has to be a communication strategy that needs to be investigated in the very beginning to see how the communications should be done.
Yeah, I think that it depends is definitely the answer here. Like, you can customize who's talking to people based on the audience. Like you mentioned, the line managers and some sort of all hands. Like, the manager would probably be a good person to communicate these changes in such areas like staff meetings or all hands or manager meetings. And then somebody who's more on hands with the change, more in the engineering area, maybe a tech lead or somebody like that, or feature team leads, as Sushma mentioned. Those could be the people who communicate these changes to the engineers, if that's the place, because they will have questions, right? I already mentioned, engineers need to know details. So you want the communication to be more tailored to them. You want to have the details in there. You want that person who's doing the communication to know how to answer their questions. And there's a common complaint that a lot of the higher level communication style or business focus style that managers or higher ups do is not good enough for engineers, and it's just a lot of words about nothing. So if you can avoid that by having your tech lead or your lead engineer do this sort of communication with all the details people in that audience want, that's definitely a win.
Do we have time for more questions? Any other? Looks like we're good. Thank you.